Let's start with a scenario. And I think this is going to feel uncomfortably familiar for a lot of people listening.
I think so.
You're in a relationship. It's it's not a total disaster, nobody's throwing plates.
Right, the police aren't being called.
Exactly. But there's this low level, like, static hum of anxiety in the background all the time. Maybe you're arguing about the dishes, but it feels like you're actually arguing about your soul.
Or you just feel lonely, but you're sitting right next to them on the couch. That's the one that gets me.
Yes. That's the ambiguous middle. And it's probably the hardest place to be. You get stuck in this agonizing loop of, is this just a rough patch? Do we grit our teeth and work through it because, relationships are hard work?
Or is this the moment I need to pull the ripcord? It's the universal paralysis of modern love, really. We're terrified of leaving too soon and missing out on something great.
But we're just as terrified of staying too long and losing ourselves.
And that specific paralysis is what we're here to dismantle today.
It is. We are doing a deep dive into a, frankly, massive conversation between the podcaster Chris Williamson and relationship expert Matthew Hussey. And I want to be super clear right off the bat. If you're expecting, like, generic how to get a text back dating advice, this is not that.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
This felt much more like a master class in, behavioral psychology and our own self-preservation.
We're going to unpack the neurochemistry of why toxic relationships can feel so addictive, the whole sunk cost fallacy of emotional investment, and why that common advice to just toughen up might actually be destroying your ability to connect.
And we have to talk about the prime energy drink versus Diet Coke analogy.
Oh, we do. That analogy is weirdly perfect, and it's going to stick with you. So let's set the stage. What is the core mission of this deep dive?
I think the mission is to give you the diagnostic tools to distinguish between a relationship that needs work and a relationship that needs an exit. And to do that, we have to start with that paralysis, with that feeling of being stuck. Hussey uses this concept he calls the cliff edge.
The cliff edge. Okay, walk us through this, because it highlights a flaw in our logic that goes way beyond just dating.
Right. So the cliff edge is basically this idea that human beings are generally terrible at proactive change. We tend to wait for a catastrophe.
We wait to go over the cliff.
Exactly. In a relationship, that means we wait for the cheating or the massive blow-up fight or for the money to run out. We wait for something so undeniable that leaving is like the only option left.
It's like you're outsourcing the decision to the disaster. It's easier that way, right? If they cheat on me, then I have to leave and I'm the victim.
Precisely. It absolves you of the responsibility of just saying, I'm not happy. But Hussey's argument is that, well, that's a cowardly way to live.
Yeah.
He says you have to create a fake cliff edge.
What does that mean?
It means you have to realize that the cost of staying, the slow erosion of your self-esteem, the years you're losing, that static hum of anxiety you mentioned, that is the disaster. It's happening right now, just quietly.
The slow bleed is justification enough. You don't need the explosion.
You don't. You can't wait for rock bottom. And you found something on this, didn't you? A quote that adds a really dark but necessary layer to this.
I did. It's from Beth Macy, who writes about the opioid crisis, of all things, but it applies so perfectly here. She said, "Rock bottom has a basement, and the basement has a trap door."
Oof. The basement has a trap door.
Right. It just shatters that illusion that things can't get any worse. People in volatile relationships always think that, well, this has to be the lowest point. It can only go up from here.
But that's a gambler's fallacy. Things can always get worse. Waiting for the absolute worst moment is so dangerous because you might lose pieces of yourself down in that basement that are just really hard to get back.
And while we're stuck down there, we're torturing ourselves with what he calls the better trap. And I think everyone has done this. You think, what if this is the best I can get?
What if I never find anyone else?
Yes. But Hussey says that's a fundamental logic error. You're comparing your current unhappy reality to a hypothetical future that doesn't exist. Of course it's scary.
So what's the alternative?
You shouldn't compare your partner to some imaginary better partner. You should compare the relationship to the happiness of not. He calls it satisfactory singleness.
Satisfactory singleness. I love that framing.
It just reframes the whole equation, doesn't it? It's not, is this person better than zero? It's, is being with them actually better than being happy, peaceful, and alone?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're choosing a miserable relationship over satisfactory singleness just because you're scared, well, that's where the work has to happen.
Right.
But, and this is important, it's not just about willpower. There's a biological reason we stay.
The slot machine effect.
Yes. This is the neuroscience. Logically, you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand away. A relationship hurts, you should leave.
But we don't. Why does our brain glitch like that?
Because it's not a glitch, it's conditioning.
Yeah.
Think about a slot machine. If you pulled the lever and lost every single time, 100% of the time, you'd walk away. It's boring. But the machine operates on a variable reward schedule.
Yeah.
It pays out just often enough to keep you completely hooked.
So in a relationship, this is the partner who is cold or distant for weeks, and then suddenly, bam, they buy you flowers, they write you a poem, they're amazing for 24 hours.
And your brain gets this massive hit of dopamine. That win feels even more euphoric because it was preceded by so much deprivation.
Yeah.
The highs feel so much higher because the lows are so incredibly low.
It's the contrast. If they were nice all the time, the flowers would just be flowers. They wouldn't feel like a drug.
Correct. And this leads to a really critical distinction Hussey makes between feeling safe and feeling relief.
Okay, break that down, because relief sounds like a good thing.
It is, in the short term. But relief implies there was a threat first. Real safety is a state of your parasympathetic nervous system. It's your rest and digest mode. It's consistent. It's calm. It's honestly kind of boring.
And relief is
Relief is the removal of a threat. The example they use is, if someone points a gun at your head, your cortisol spikes, you're in terror. When they lower the gun, you feel this immense wash of euphoria. You feel safe.
But you're not safe. You're just in a room with a person holding a gun who decided not to shoot you for now.
Exactly. You're mistaking the end of pain for the presence of love.
Yeah.
So when you get that text after being ignored for 3 days, that rush you feel, that's not passion. It's not butterflies.
It's a cortisol roller coaster disguised as chemistry. Wow.
It's your body just recovering from a threat response.
That is a massive wake-up call. Okay, speaking of things we get addicted to, let's pivot to the first sip problem. Hussey's analogy about Diet Coke versus Prime Energy drink was, it was just brilliant.
It is the perfect metaphor for the modern dating world, especially with app culture.
So he describes Prime, the Logan Paul drink, as being engineered for the first sip. It's hyper sweet, explosive flavor, neon colors. It just hits you right in the face. You take that first sip and you're like, whoa, this is incredible.
But have you ever tried to drink a whole bottle of that stuff?
No. It gets sickly so fast. Halfway through, your teeth hurt. You don't actually want to finish it.
Whereas a Diet Coke or water or whatever,
Yeah.
it's optimized for the whole can. It's not as explosive at first,
Right, it doesn't punch you in the face.
but it's satisfying all the way through. You can drink it every day and not get sick of it.
And the application here is that some people are Prime people. They are sparky, they are so charming and charismatic and intense right out of the gate. They love bomb you.
And we make the mistake of thinking that their universal charm is a special connection with us.
That's the trap. We think, wow, we have such amazing chemistry. But the reality is they have that chemistry with everyone. That's their whole personality.
You're just falling for the first sip, not realizing that the whole can experience, the actual relationship, the folding laundry on a Tuesday night is going to be empty or even nauseating.
So how do we tell the difference? How do we know if we're in a whole can relationship or just chasing a sugar high? They laid out 5 diagnostic questions that are like a litmus test for reality. We should run through them.
Let's do it. These cut right through the noise.
Question 1. If someone told you that you were a lot like your partner, would you take that as a compliment?
Oof, that gets deep. It forces you to look at their character, not just how they make you feel. Do you admire who they are? Do they have integrity? If being compared to them feels like an insult, you have to ask why you're with them.
Okay, question 2. Are you truly fulfilled or are you just less lonely?
That goes right back to satisfactory singleness.
Yeah.
Are you just using them as a band-aid for your own solitude? A warm body isn't a partner.
Question 3. Are you unapologetically yourself or are you performing to please them?
This is the walking on eggshells test. If you find yourself editing your words, hiding your hobbies, toning down your personality to keep the peace, that isn't a relationship.
It's a performance art piece, and it's exhausting.
It is.
Okay, question 4, a classic. Are you in love with who they are now or their potential?
The I can fix them trap. You have to date the person in front of you, not the project. If they never change from this exact moment forward, would you stay? If the answer is no, but if they just, then you're in trouble.
And finally, question 5, the gatekeeper question. Would you want your future or imagined child to date someone just like them?
And Hussey takes this even further. He asks, if you died, would you be happy for your partner to raise your child alone? Imparting their values, their habits, their emotional regulation onto your kid.
That clarifies things almost instantly. If your gut just screams, oh God, no, then,
Yeah.
well, there's your answer.
There's one more diagnostic tool that I found really profound. It's a visualization.
Okay.
Imagine you woke up tomorrow and the relationship was just over. You didn't have to do it, no big fight, no tears, it's just done. The slate is clean. Would your primary feeling be wistfulness or relief?
He shared a personal story about this, didn't he? He had a dream that he got back together with an ex, and in the dream, he just panicked.
Yeah, he woke up sweating. And he realized the nightmare wasn't the breakup. The nightmare was being back in the relationship. If your dominant emotion at the thought of it ending is, thank God I don't have to be anxious anymore, that's your body telling you the truth.
So let's say you've run the diagnostics. You're trying to figure things out. How do we make sure that we are showing up correctly? Because it's easy to point fingers, but we all bring our own baggage. This takes us to a concept Hussey calls the bodyguard.
This is so crucial for understanding our own behaviors. So we all have an inner child, right? The part of us that's innocent, that wants to connect and have fun.
And eat cookies. I relate to the cookies part.
And eat cookies, yes. It just wants to be loved and safe. But the world can be a dangerous place. We get rejected, we get hurt. So to protect that child, we develop a bodyguard.
And the bodyguard is our survival mechanisms.
Exactly. For some, it's ambition and success. For others, it's sarcasm or being tough or aloof. The bodyguard's job is to say, I'll handle this. Don't get hurt. Don't let them see you care.
The problem isn't having one. I mean, we need one. The problem is when the bodyguard takes over the whole show.
Right, when the bodyguard becomes the CEO,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're not letting anyone in. You're just two suits of armor clanking against each other. There's no intimacy.
This connects to a really interesting point Chris Williamson brought up. He talked about advice hyper-responders.
I had never heard this term before, but it explains so much about the self-help world.
It really explains the irony of the industry, doesn't it? The idea is that the people who most need to hear slow down are usually the ones listening to work harder advice.
So you have these type A overachievers already at the gym at 5 a.m., and they're listening to David Goggins screaming, stay hard, and they think, yes, I'm lazy, I need to do more.
When in reality, they're already burning out. Their bodyguard is working overtime. They're the ones who actually need to hear Eckhart Tolle whispering, you are enough. But you are enough sounds boring to the bodyguard. The bodyguard wants a mission. So if you're a hyper-responder, maybe the answer isn't to train the bodyguard more. It's to tell him to take a lunch break so the inner child can actually breathe.
But that requires vulnerability. And I feel like that word has lost all its meaning.
It's on every corporate slide deck now. What do they actually mean by it here?
Well, here, it's specific. It is not weakness. We tend to think that suppressing emotion is strength. But Hussey argues that hiding your feelings is just avoidance rebranded as strength.
Avoidance rebranded as strength. That's a great line.
True courage is facing the uncertainty of emotional exposure. It's saying, here's who I am, here's what I need, and risking rejection. That's infinitely braver than putting up a wall and pretending you don't care.
But the fear is always, if I'm vulnerable, if I'm soft, I'll lose my edge, I won't be attractive. But this source argues the exact opposite, which brings us to unique pairings.
This is the secret sauce of magnetism. A tough guy acting tough is predictable. A sensitive person acting sensitive is expected. A unique pairing is when you combine two contradictory traits in one person.
The bear on a unicycle image. You see a bear. Scary. You see a unicycle. Funny. You see a bear on a unicycle.
You cannot look away. It's magnetic. Think about a ruthless business person who comes home and is a complete puppy dog with their partner. Or a deep philosophical thinker who also loves MMA.
It's that combination of competence and vulnerability that makes someone irreplaceable. So vulnerability doesn't make you weak. Vulnerability plus competence makes you a unicorn.
Precisely. Vulnerability without competence can look like neediness. Competence without vulnerability looks like a robot. You need both to be the bear on the unicycle.
And this is but even if you are a unicorn, you have to be in the right ecosystem. This brings us to the vinegar and baking soda analogy.
This is such a good reality check. Sometimes two people are just vinegar and baking soda. Individually, they're fine. Baking soda is great for cookies. Vinegar is great for salads.
But when you put them together,
it's just a mess of foam and explosion. And we tend to pathologize this. We want a villain. She's crazy. He's a narcissist.
Sometimes there is a villain, sure, but often it's just a fundamental mismatch. If you're an early bird who loves structure and you date a chaotic night owl, the explosion isn't a moral failure. It's just chemistry.
And when those explosions happen over and over, we tend to retreat and get cynical.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the internet can trap us in what Hussey calls the wall.
The wall. Explain that.
It's dangerous. It starts with a valid pain. Maybe you've been hurt by men who won't commit. That experience is real. That's your wall. The problem is modern algorithms are designed to keep you staring at that wall.
Right. You watch one video titled Why Modern Dating is Broken, and suddenly your entire feed is just more and more reinforcement of that one specific pain.
It creates an echo chamber where you bond with other people over the wound instead of healing it. You start to believe the whole world is the wall. You think all men are like this or all women are like that.
And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you walk into every new interaction looking for proof.
You're walking into a bar looking for a fight.
To break that cycle, there was this example about the baseball player, Shohei Ohtani. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but this story was really powerful.
It's a perfect illustration of transcending that reactor instinct. So, Ohtani gets hit by pitch. Fastball, right in the back. It obviously hurt. And in baseball, that's often when the bench is clear. The team rushes the field, a fight breaks out.
The wall reaction, you hurt me, we fight.
But he didn't do that.
Yeah.
He immediately signaled to his team to stand down. He just held up a hand like, I'm good, everyone calm down.
Yeah.
He didn't let the external aggression dictate his internal state. He broke the cycle.
That is real power, not reacting, not letting the bodyguard start a war just because it knows how to fight.
And it brings us all the way back to that neurochemistry of chasing versus resting. A healthy relationship, and a healthy relationship with yourself should feel like rest. It shouldn't feel like a constant battle.
It's about moving from that fight-or-flight sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic, to rest.
And that requires us to stop chasing that prime energy hit. We have to learn to appreciate the stability of the Diet Coke, you know?
Yeah.
We have to realize that boring can often just mean safe.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, how do we synthesize this? What does this all mean for the person listening who is sitting in that ambiguous middle right now?
I think it means we need to stop equating difficulty with value. There's this cultural myth that if love is hard, it must be true. But a lot of the time, if it's that hard, it's just wrong.
Sometimes the bravest thing to do is admit that it's just vinegar and baking soda and stop trying to bake a cake with it.
And check in with that inner child. Ask them what they need. They probably don't need you to tough it out for another 6 months just to prove a point. They probably just want to feel safe.
That's the thought I want to leave everyone with. We wear our scars like badges of honor. You know, I stayed through the cheating. I stayed through the neglect. We think resilience is about how much pain we can endure in a relationship.
But what if that's wrong?
What if true resilience is actually the courage to admit that the first sip flavor has run out, that the bottle is empty, and that you deserve a whole can kind of love?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take care.